In this presentation, we will work a problem related to the optimal sales mix. We're going to have the restriction, which will be the labor hours. The direct labor hours will be our restriction. We'll have the information up top. We're going to put that information into tables down below, creating the tables from, in essence, scratch in this Excel worksheet. If you would like to work with pre-formatted tables, we have those as well. We're going to put our information up top. It's already up top. We suggest that you put the information up top in any type of problem that you're working in a format where you have the text and you have the numbers in a separate cell so that you can refer back to them with cell references. That will be the most efficient way to do this. So we're going to have the optimal sales mix. We've got our information for A and B being our products. We're going to have the selling price per unit, the variable cost per unit, the contribution margin per unit being the difference between those two. Notice the selling price is pretty high this time, right? So the variable costs here, and so the contribution margin is fairly high in these types of units that we're selling, higher price items. We have the direct labor hours per unit. It's going to take 4 hours. Notice again, now we have multiple hours that it takes to take one unit, as opposed to making lower price items where we have, fractions of an hour to produce one unit. So the look of the answer will look different, of course, given the fact that we have the higher price units. Expected demand in units is going to be 167 and 51. This is what we think we could sell the demand for the units if we were able to meet that demand. But of course, we have restrictions based on our major restriction being the direct labor hours. So what we're going to do is we're going to say the max direct labor hours is a 788. That's going to be our restriction. And we're going to take a look at our sales mix given that restriction. All right, so we're going to start up top. We're going to say our table is going to be for B and C. We're going to have the same kind of headers here. We're going to say that the contribution margin per unit is where we'll start. Contribution margin per unit, we said, was equal to this 512 and the 133.5. Now notice I don't have any decimals here, so whenever there's a decimal, I'm going to go in here and adjust my table, home tab, numbers, increase decimals. You could put decimals in everything. That might be a good option for this particular problem. So that's just going to be a formatting option that you'll have to think about and think about how you want to deal with. Then we're going to pick up the direct labor hours per unit, which is 4 and 3. So it takes more than 1 hour for one unit because we have high price items. And that'll give us the contribution margin per direct labor hour. Contribution margin per direct labor hour then is going to be equal to the 512 divided by the 4 hours. So then we're going to say this equals the 333.50 divided by the 3 hours. So that, and I'm going to add decimals to this item. Home tab, alignment, increase decimals, or number, increase decimals. We'll underline here, home tab, font, underline, and then we could double underline here. Home tab, font, double underline. Now if we want to format this further, we can highlight this whole thing. I'll make it home tab, font, and the color blue by going to the wheel here, standard, make it blue. Going to put brackets around it, home tab, font. We're going to go to the borders, all borders. I'll highlight this top item. We'll go to the home tab, font group, black and white. I'm going to center, home tab, alignment, center. Okay, so next we're going to have the max number to be sold, and we're going to figure out the required hours that we have, that we would need for the max number of units. So we're going to say, all right, here's, if we were to make the max units, we think there's a demand for 167 and 51 units on the max. How many hours would be required for those max units? It would be 167 times 4 hours, and it would equal the 51 units times the 3 hours for a total number of hours of 821. Now we don't have that many hours. We only have got 788, which means we're going to have a restraint. So I'm going to do the same formatting here. Home tab, font, make it blue, which should be here now, and I'll put the grid line around that. So now we'll think about, okay, well, we have a constraint. What are we going to do with the constraint? We don't have 821 hours. So we're going to allocate our hours allocated to the products that we're going to have here. Now, we know that if we look at our contribution margin per direct labor hour, we're better off making A. So we're going to devote our time to making A up to the point where we max out the production of A, where we've maxed out the number of units that we think we could sell. We think we could sell 167 units, and that takes 668 hours. So I'm going to max that out. We're going to say, all right, we're going to max that to 668. We know that there's total hours that we're going to have available. I'm going to put over here, the total is 788 hours. Therefore, how much are we going to apply to B in terms of hours equals the 788 total that we have minus the amount that we're going to max out on A. That gives us another 120 that we'll spend on B. So units produced then, how many units are we going to produce given these hours that we're going to allocate to A and B? We're going to say, all right, there's 668 divided by 4 hours that it takes per unit means we're going to make 167 units of A. This equals 120 divided by the 3 hours it takes. That gives us the 40 units we'll produce of B. The contribution margin per unit that we're going to gain here, contribution margin per unit, is equal to the 512 and equal to the 133.50. I'm going to add the decimals here, home tab, numbers, increase decimals, and we'll underline this item. Say, go ahead and underline that, and that'll give us our total contribution margin, which we're going to say is equal to the 167 times the 512, 85,504, and this equals the 40 times the 133.50, which gives us the 5,340. If we sum those up, we're going to get the 90,844. I'm going to go ahead and highlight this, and we'll font underline here. Then we'll highlight this whole thing, make it blue, put the grid lines around it, and there's going to be our sales mix. So here's going to be the hours, here's going to be the units we create, and the total contribution margin.